Hi, I'm Joe Foster. Welcome to the advanced martial art of Kenjute. Let's talk about real fights. Not fights like you see in a competition ring, not fights as choreographed in some action movie, but actual street self-defense. Effective self-defense techniques don't happen by accident. They're based on sound concepts and principles that can be applied universally. So let's take a look at two of those principles right now based on centerline and perimeters. So the concept of centerline when you're defending yourself doing self-defenses. If you take a look at his midline here, anywhere that he gets hit along that midline could cause serious damage to him. His eyes, his nose, his throat, down into his chest, all the organs down into the groin, the insides of the knees, and so on. So what he wants to do is he wants to protect that center line. He wants to make a big target a small target. Now, if it's not an actual fight and it's just a heated conversation where the person hasn't attacked you, to stand like this to fight somebody is really a dumb thing to do. We talked about that in a previous video, which had to do with critical distance and zones of sanctuary. Remember, if you don't want to get hit, don't be there. I suggest you check out that video too. But from here, with this center line, in order to protect it, when he's in a conversation, he wants to get his hands up and simply drop back. So he's in a very casual stance. This is not aggressive. This is not offensive. This is not for Mrs. Jones filming, because you know everybody films these days of what's going on. He will not look like the aggressor. But if you look carefully, what he did is come back to the position. He took what was a target this wide and he actually made the target go much smaller. So that's a way to protect his center line. Now we applied the same thing in an actual fight scenario. So from the center line, if he was actually fighting, he would go back into a fighting horse. Now he's ready to go, his hands are up, and he's closed that center line, protecting all those vital organs. Now if he's facing me in this fighting position, pivoting center line. He can't stay there, because if he stood there and I circled him, he would get hit and that center line's re-exposed. So he pivots off the front foot. That allows him to be a little more aggressive than pivoting off the back foot. Some classic arts pivot off the back foot. It's easy to steamroll a guy. If he shifts all the weight on his back leg and he starts pivoting off of that foot, all I have to do is just steamroll him and he's done. Okay? So he's going to pivot off his front foot, pivoting center line. So he maintains that center line and goes off this way. If I go the other direction, he comes back here as well. Okay, face the camera. So what we have then is the center line goes back into a fighting horse or ready stance. It doesn't really matter, but that's called a floating center line. You float your shoulders off on a 45-degree angle. Then we had pivoting center line. Now what if he wanted to change his angle of entry? We do what's called an off-angle pivot point, still applying the center line. So if he was fighting me from this position here, maybe I stepped in to punch him, he could slip it and then simply pivot, and now he's completely changed what he's doing. Watch his footwork again. So he's got a simple slip first, there's the slip, and now he drops behind, there's the pivot, okay? So that's what we mean by an off-angle pivot point. We teach that in a number of self-defenses. For example, if I had him in a bear hug from behind like this, he would pin, stomp on the foot, and step out and chop my groin, and buckle and elbow, and turn and palm, this way, and two knees. And here's the beginnings of this off-angle pivot point, here and then there, okay? So, in order to protect yourself, no matter what the self-defense is, make your target smaller by always protecting your center line, and when in combat, make sure you get your hands up. Moving on to the second concept we're going to share with you today. Remember, these techniques are not based on a particular martial art or a particular technique. They're universal that can be applied to make the technique effective and practical. So, perimeters. From here, he has the left perimeter, the left outward extended perimeter. Comes back to the line. Notice the magic line is pretty much at the shoulder. and then the middle perimeter is the center line itself. He does the right perimeter, right outward extended. Now he would never cross that perimeter. So when he goes back to the middle, he then changes hands and passes it off to the other side, and if he went beyond, it become an outward extended. So that's path of action. Okay? This is very important when you're blocking with your perimeters. And the reason this is important is because it helps you understand what kind of blocks to do. When he's on the inside, it's an outward block. If he has to go beyond it, it becomes an outward extended block. And even from a fighting position, the center line's still here. If he has to go past, he then changes it. Okay? So that is in terms of width. Now, what about depth? Depth is divided into 4 zones as well. Proximal, inner, where your arm's almost extended all the way, not totally hyperextended. Then you have outer, and then extended. So what's this for? This helps us understand what types of strikes to do. So in the proximal distance, the guy is really close to you. So what he's going to do in this position is he could headbutt, he could bite, he could use his fingers to the eyes. If I had him in a bear hug or something, he could break my eardrums. So when you're in really tight, that's when, in the proximal zone, that's when you use your headbutts, bites, fingers. The next distance, all right, so that's proximal. Now the inner basically means that from here he throws most of his punches. So he could throw a reverse punch, he could throw a jab, anything like that. Now when he throws this reverse punch, if you look, it's also the same distance as the knee. Also in this area here, a lot of your elbows. You could shuffle and do an inward elbow and so on, okay? So that's the inner. The outer perimeter in terms of depth is where he'd throw the kicks. He wouldn't punch me from here because he can't reach. So from here he would throw his kicks. So all of the kicks are done in this zone. It doesn't make sense for him to try and throw a kick if I'm this close. Beyond that, he has to make a decision. So you have proximal, inner, then the outer. Now the extended perimeter means I'm way back here. He's going to have to move in order to get me. So to do that, he could skip up and throw a kick, all right? Or he could shuffle and throw a punch if I was a little bit closer. It doesn't really matter where you step, drag, and punch. So in the extended perimeter, in the depth, you have to make that adjustment by moving your body. And when you move your body, move it as a single unit. So that is in terms of depth. In the height, we divide the body once again into 4. So if he's in a fighting stance, in the, right here, the upward perimeter, if a guy threw a punch, he would block in the upward perimeter. If the person was punching higher, clubbing down, he would go to the upward extended perimeter. So upper perimeter is basically elbow to shoulder in that area. So that's upward extended. A lower perimeter is from the elbow to the fist. All right, so once again, from here, first perimeter, that's upper, upward extended, lower. Now, lower extended, you should never reach for these blocks. When you reach, if it's a low kick or something like that, you're going to get hit in the face. Anybody who knows anything about real fighting sets you up nice and low to take you out up above. So instead, what he does in the lower extended perimeter is something like a knee block. So in terms of height, once again, you have upward perimeter, upward extended, lower perimeter, lower extended. This tells you the types of blocks that you should be applying. So that talks to you about width, depth, and height. And then when you look at self-defenses, it makes sense then why we do certain strikes the way we do and in what sequence we do it. Good luck with your training. Train hard. Don't forget to feel free to leave some comments, like, share, and follow, and do all those wonderful things. We'll see you again soon in the next video. Thanks for watching.